Like it or not, BMW has made some of the most beautiful and jaw-dropping designs in the history of the modern vehicle. From the 1936 328, named as one of the top 25 cars of the century in 1999, which won more than 100 class wins in racing, including wins at the Mille Miglia in 1938 and 1940. 503, the Grand Tourer from the mid-50s that cost so much to develop with a price set so high by BMW itself that vehicle importers like Max Hoffman in the US refused to purchase and sell, ultimately leading to the vehicle's downfall. The E24, BMW's first 6 Series that had a wonderful production run from 1976 to 1989, and the M1 of the same era, BMW's first mid-engine vehicle, which in my opinion might be the pinnacle of all the designs. The E38 750iL, preferred by Pierce Brosnan and Tomorrow Never Dies, and a BMW enthusiast fan favorite, the E39 M5 of the 90s. My personal choice of daily driver, the E46 3 Series, to current production cars such as the new BMW M2 or the M3 Touring. Aside from missteps along the way with the 03 7 Series design and a few buck-teeth grills of the 2020s, BMW has and will always be known as beautiful design cars that produce the ultimate driving experience. But there is one model that stands alone as one of the quirkiest and least or most BMW designs that has ever worn the blue and white emblem. I give you the BMW Isetta. Funny enough, the Isetta wasn't even designed by BMW in the first place, and it has a very fascinating story. Right around when BMW started producing the 501 and the 503, mentioned earlier, they produced the egg-shaped microcar Isetta with the starting price of about $1,000 or $11,000 in today's economy. At the time before production of the Isetta, BMW was mostly selling large, ultra-luxury cruisers that harken back to pre-war times. The German manufacturer was struggling to find their own identity in, well, its customers. The Isetta was a chance to recreate their image, and in fact, every model produced after the tiny bubble car proves that. Their cars began focusing on a new breed of customers, ones focused on practicality and fun, rather than gaudy and audacious luxury. I mean, look at the difference between the 501, produced right before the Isetta, and the 700, produced 6 years after the Isetta. How's that Bob Dylan song go again? This kind of gives credence to the introduction of 2003's 7 Series, which, while arguably is BMW's least popular modern design, is proof that BMW's eye on the future of technology with the first implementation of iDrive was paradigm shifting. It laid the groundwork for expectation of what customers in the 2000s, 2010s, and today really want. But I digress. Like I mentioned earlier, the Isetta was in fact not of German descent. It was an Italian design from a refrigerator company that was branching into the automotive industry. Iso Autoveicoli SPA of Italy, run by Renzo Rivolta, wanted a car for the masses, and in 1952 they achieved that with the Isetta, aka Little Iso. The Isetta sported a motorcycle engine and was the first of its kind. It was 7.5 feet long and 4.5 feet wide, which, not surprisingly, is about the size of a refrigerator. For something to compare that to in today's market, let's look at a vehicle on the opposite side of the spectrum. Toyota's Grand Highlander is almost 17 feet long and 6.5 feet wide. Yeah, the Isetta was tiny. But the people of Turin, Italy didn't have the 2025 Grand Highlander yet, and the Isetta fit their cobblestone streets perfectly. Designed with a single door, the front end of the car opened up like a pop-up. The steering wheel and instrument panels swung out with the door to allow passengers easy access to the single bench seat. From there, drivers are met with a manual transmission and 47 miles per hour of top speed from a small motorcycle engine. Earlier models featured only 3 wheels, which were later upgraded to 4 as the car was particularly prone to rollovers. The Little Iso was a success up until 1955, when the Italian model's run was ceased due to competition with Fiat's 500C, among other reasons. The Italian-made Isetta even had a run in the Mille Miglia, winning all 3 top spots in the economy class, averaging about 43 miles an hour across the 1,000-mile track. The Isetta sparked plenty of global interest, and the car was licensed to companies in Spain, Belgium, France, and Brazil. And let's not forget BMW in Germany. But BMW didn't just license the rights to produce an Isetta for the German market, they purchased the complete body tooling and reworked the Isetta to German standards. In fact, the 1955 release of the BMW Isetta was so re-engineered that the only thing not totally redone was the name. The first BMW Isetta shared 0 interchangeable parts with its Italian counterpart. The BMW Isetta 250 was the initial production run of the egg-shaped car in Germany and came with a 250cc motorcycle engine, much like the first Italian-run Little Isos. But the 250 used BMW R25 3 motorcycle engine, a changed front suspension, different cylinder heads, crankshafts, and updated cooling systems, among other updates. Notable styling difference included the headlamps fixed separately to the sides of the bodywork rather than being fixed to the car. Since the car had a motorcycle engine, German drivers were able to use a Class 4 motorcycle license to pilot the Isetta 250. 10,000 were produced in the 8 months leading to the eventual updated model, the Isetta 300. And yes, this is the model Steve Urkel drove. But what led to such a swift change? German law and regulations updated Class 4 licenses to only be applicable on motorcycles, and tax classes were restructured with a limit at 300cc engines. So with the government effectively forcing BMW to update the Isetta, the 300 was born. It featured, you guessed it, a 300cc engine that reached the same 53 mile an hour top speed of the 250 with a noticeably more comfortable ride. Starting production in February of 1956, BMW eventually produced a sliding window Isetta, or the Isetta Moto Coupe Deluxe, which replaced the bubble windows with sliding side windows. Produced concurrently with the Isetta 300 was the BMW 600, intended as a more consumer-friendly Isetta that featured an enlarged frame, more power and room for more passengers in the rear. Coming back to our discussion of paradigm-shifting vehicles, the Isetta 600 was the first BMW to feature the brand new semi-trailing arm suspension, which paved the way for BMW suspensions for the following 40 years. Yes, you heard that correctly. Nearly every BMW model for the following 4 decades used a similarly designed semi-trailing arm suspension to the one on the 600. But the Isetta 600 died rather quickly as customers were eventually through with quirky cars, and only 34,000 of them were produced in a short 2-year production span until 1957. Despite the end of the 600, BMW continued to produce the 300 until 1962, and the good chaps over in the UK at Dunsfold Tools even began producing them in the year 1957. Dunsfold Tools was quickly renamed Isetta of Great Britain, and the models were delivered to the public in April that year. The Isetta wasn't a huge hit in the UK, but the production of a 3-wheeled version, which offered designation as a 3-wheeled motorcycle, meaning lower taxes and a simpler to acquire license, was a hit. 4-wheelers the Isetta of Great Britain produced were exported to countries such as Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. Production in the UK stopped in 1962, and so final numbers saw nearly 205,360 German-made BMW Isettas produced from the years 1955 to 1962. Not many in the grand scheme of things, but definitely quite a number for an egg-shaped car that opened from the front. So, was that the end for the Isetta? Sort of. Consumers across the globe tend to be thinking bigger as wagons are turning into crossovers and SUVs are getting bigger and bigger with each new model year. But companies such as Microlino have made a front-opening, electric-inspired Isetta-esque vehicle that has received serious acclaim, even from some popular writers such as Chris Harris. Who knows? Perhaps the world will heal and people will stop buying cars the way the same as an African forest elephant. Or they won't, and we can simply look back on history and say, wow, that happened, and remind ourselves that there was a world where you could catch a matinee viewing of Hitchcock's Vertigo before walking to a dealership and buying a brand new BMW Isetta 300.